Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to meeting number 573, the Town of Grand Falls-Windsor Council. Before we get into the regular order of business tonight, we do have a couple of proclamations to take care of. The first proclamation is for Purple Day for Epilepsy. Purple Day is a global effort to promote epilepsy awareness in countries around the world. And whereas Purple Day was founded by 9-year-old Cassidy Megan of Nova Scotia, who wanted to let people know that if you have epilepsy, you're not alone. And whereas epilepsy is a chronic neurological disorder which affects each person differently, estimated to affect over 10,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador, over 300,000 people in Canada, and 50 million people worldwide. And whereas 1 in 10 persons will have at least one seizure during their lifetime. And whereas the public is often unable to recognize common seizure types and unable to respond with appropriate first aid. And whereas Purple Day will be celebrated on March 26th annually to increase understanding, reduce stigma, and improve the quality of life for people living with epilepsy throughout the country and globally. Now therefore I, Barry Manuel, Mayor of Grand Falls-Windsor, do hereby proclaim March 26th as Purple Day, in an effort to raise awareness and understanding of epilepsy and to support all those who live with seizures each day. And for our second resolution, we have some guests on hand. So I'd ask the representatives that are here from the Status of Women Central if they'd come forward for the second proclamation. Come on up. I'm going to get you to gather in around me here so that we can sign the proclamation. I understand there's no official spokesperson here amongst the group, but just want to thank the Status of Women representatives for coming down. Obviously, tomorrow is a very important day, International Women's Day, and as always, we're proud to celebrate with you. So, a lot of familiar faces here. I'm sure people recognize that Jackie, of course, is the director of Status Women Central, and what's this, like her posse, is it? The crowd?
My entourage.
Right.
Small members of the board.
This is Si's bodyguard, right? That's the group. But in all seriousness, we'll go ahead and do the proclamation now, and we'll let these ladies get on with their evenings. So I'm sure they're not going to want to stick around and listen to us.
Should we get in closer?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Come on in and gather in and around there so Robin can get a picture for us. Okay. So, the proclamation for International Women's Day, May 8th, 2023, whereas International Women's Day is celebrated around the world by those who believe in gender equity and who seek to improve lives of all women and girls, trans and cis, two-spirit and gender-diverse peoples through cultural, political, economic, and social change. We proclaim this day, March 8th, to celebrate and encourage bold actions that support our 2023 theme of Embrace Equity. Whereas, imagine a gender-equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Whereas International Women's Day is a time to envision a world where all women and girls can exercise their choices, such as participating in politics, getting an education, having an income, and living in societies free from violence and discrimination. Therefore, I, Barry Manuel, Mayor of the Town of Grand Falls-Windsor, do hereby proclaim March 8th, 2023 to be International Women's Day in the Town of Grand Falls-Windsor. Robin, you okay? Our communications person is getting some snaps. and a copy for you guys to take back to the office with you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Barry.
Give that to Kim. So thanks again for dropping down, and we wish you all the best tomorrow. We got anything in particular on tomorrow that you'd like to let folks know about? I know you got a
We've got a dinner tomorrow night, but we're
sold out, right? Yeah. So no public events as such. Just celebrate as you would yourself, and I hope you have a great dinner tomorrow night.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll give the folks a chance now to move out before we call the meeting to order. Okay, with that, I'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is the adoption of the minutes from meeting number 572. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Hiscock?
No, sorry, Mr. Mayor, a little bit ahead of the game.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Any errors or omissions? No errors or omissions. I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Little. Any discussion on the previous meeting's minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay. Any business arising out of the minutes? No business arising. We'll move into the disbursement report. Councillor Dwyer, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the disbursement report dated February 23rd, 2023, in the amount of $585,268.01.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Brown. Any discussion on the disbursement report? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Move into committee reports. First up is Community Services. Deputy Mayor Brown, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Community Services Committee met Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 at 5 p.m. Those in attendance were myself as chair, Councillor Holly Dwyer, Councillor Andrew Little, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councillor Amy Cody, Councillor Bob Hiscock, Councillor Dave Knoll. Staff in attendance were Darren Finn, our Chief Administrative Officer, Robin Hannaford, our Communications Officer, and Todd Mercer, our Director of Community Services. First order of business was the 2023 Provincial Special Olympics. The committee discussed the upcoming Special Olympics Winter Games scheduled for March 9th to the 12th. The Director informed the committee that staff are preparing for the event and setting up the track and equipment required in anticipation of snow in the coming weeks. Exploits Valley Renewable Energy Corporation. The committee reviewed the correspondence from Exploits Valley Renewable Energy Corporation on their upcoming open house scheduled for Thursday, February 23rd at the Classic Theatre. The Director informed the committee that the Economic Development Manager will be attending on behalf of the department, and councillors were also encouraged to participate. The committee also discussed the importance of citizens being part of this important wind energy development discussion, and recommends that staff post the information about the upcoming consultations. The committee believes that the scale of development being discussed has the potential to be transformational to the economy of the Central Region, so it is supportive in principle of this concept. The committee looks forward to learning more about this growing green energy sector and understanding more about the benefits that can be derived for the region and province. Sliding Hill grand opening. The committee discussed when the grand opening would be for the newly constructed Sliding Hill. The committee recommends that the grand opening date be set for Friday, March 3rd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. if weather and snow conditions permit. The staff will prepare hot chocolate, popcorn, and hot dogs for the families and citizens who come. All citizens are welcome to enjoy a fun night and take part in an evening of sliding on the hill. Town Hall lighting. The committee discussed options for adding lights to the Town Hall that can change colors. With all the requests from outside groups to change the color on the Town Hall as part of their effort to recognize special occasions or events led by community groups, it is recommended to install lighting that could easily accommodate this demand without physically switching bulbs. The committee also recommended that the Town Hall gable end and eaves above the main entrance receive some maintenance. The Director and the Public Works and Development Director will coordinate together to get this done in 2023. Brian Blackmore letter. The committee discussed a request from Brian and Vera Blackmore about celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Joe Byrne Memorial Stadium in 2023. The committee discussed several options for the coming year, but recommended to formally acknowledge this milestone during the Exploits Valley Salmon Festival's Thursday night salmon dinner. The committee also recommended that the Director establish a working committee consisting of staff, Deputy Mayor Brown, and a couple of residents to develop some plans. This subcommittee will report back to the committee at a later meeting for more discussion. Central Health correspondence. The committee discussed an email from Central Health thanking town staff for their recent participation in a doctor recruitment event. The committee was pleased to learn that 2 doctors later chose to settle in Grand Falls-Windsor when they finished their training. The committee recommended that staff continue with these efforts. RNC correspondence. The committee reviewed correspondence from the RNC looking for support with their 33rd annual Crime Prevention Guide. This year's focus is the development of a teenager's drug abuse prevention handbook to help show high school children the consequences of consuming street drugs that may include life-threatening fentanyl and other potentially deadly substances. The committee recommends supporting this effort by purchasing 1/8 page color ad. The Director will contact the RNC and work with them on the layout. In other business, the committee had some discussion on the snow buildup around the Joe Byrne Memorial Stadium and the need to clean up and remove the snow efficiently. The Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Community Services will work with the Department of Public Works and Development on a solution. The committee had some discussion about an email sent to them with the concerns about stadium dressing rooms and the manner in which they are scheduled. The committee recommends that the Director follow up with the resident. The committee reviewed the new government special assistance grant for communities and for seniors. The committee recommends that the Director discuss options with the Public Works and Development Director and develop an application. Options considered by the committee include community kayak launch and building upgrades for the seniors clubs. The Director will report back to the committee later. The committee had some discussion on the scheduled midwinter bivver events planned for next week. The Director informed the committee that pending any more loss of snow, that all events will run from March 3rd to the 4th and invite citizens to participate. There's a schedule of events posted online, including all the details about food that will be served. The meeting was adjourned at 8:15 p.m. and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
It has been moved by Deputy Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Hiscock. Any discussion on the community services minutes? Deputy Mayor.
Okay, just a couple of things, Mayor. With respect to the bivver, the first bivver we had since 2019 took place this last weekend. We had 40 machines on the snowmobile ride. I don't think they call them snowmobiles anymore. But good to see a great crowd, and the conditions I know weren't ideal, Councillor No, but ideal enough to have a successful run. I think everybody that participated had a great time. And of course the dinner following at the Legion this past Saturday night, where about 100 people attended like that, and a great dinner. And that dinner, it was Councillor No was acknowledged for his 16 years as president of the Trail Association. Exploits Net Trail Association. So congratulations, Councillor Noel, that's a long time, and I know there's been some significant improvements from the day you thought about this idea to where we are now. And the trails are world class when we have snow, and certainly a destination for people around the island as well. So that was one thing, Mr. Mayor. The second thing was the Special Olympics, which are taking place in Grand Falls-Windsor this weekend. The opening ceremonies at Joburn Stadium on Thursday night, a couple of nights' time. About 225 athletes and about another 100 volunteers, coaches, and aides coming to Grand Falls-Windsor to celebrate the Winter Games. It's the first time they've been able to have them since 2018, I think it was. Anyway, we missed a couple of years because of the COVID, but it's good to see everybody back in action. It was certainly, we had a volunteer night at the United Church there about 10 days ago. Certainly heartwarming. We had 150 volunteers show up, and since that time, Grand Falls, Windsor, and surrounding communities in central Newfoundland, I think we're up to 300 volunteers to help out with the games this weekend. So certainly a great show, and it does your heart good to see all those people participating. And that'll be it for me, Mr. Mayor, on that.
Yeah, for sure, exciting weekend coming up with the Special Olympics, and as always, we all enjoy watching those athletes compete and hope everything turns out well for them. Looking forward to a good weekend in Grand Falls, Windsor. Any other comments on the community services minutes? Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to take a second to encourage the residents of Grand Falls, Windsor and surrounding areas to inform themselves a little bit more, learn as much as they can about the renewable energy and the proposals that have been put forth, the meetings that we've had. I mean, when we talk about transformational opportunities, I mean, that's really what we're looking at going forward here in central Newfoundland. I just encourage everybody to take a few minutes whenever you can and to try and up to speed on the latest technological changes with respect to the windmills and the opportunity that's afforded Grand Falls, Windsor, and surrounding areas in central Newfoundland going forward. With respect to economic development here, when we were knocking on doors before we got elected, everybody saying, we need jobs and jobs and jobs, and this is an opportunity that perhaps Newfoundland has never seen before. And I just encourage all the residents to get informed, to have their say, and to get a little dig in to make sure that the residents and not just of Grand Falls, Windsor, Central Newfoundland, but all Newfoundlanders, benefit from these potentially transformational projects that are going to come sooner or later. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, for sure, and it was good to see the company, one of the proponents that is submitting a bid to government, actually get out in front of a group of people and invite the residents out to be able to discuss the project and answer questions and provide information. It's still in the very early stages, obviously. This is a result of government putting up some 1.8 million acres of land, I think. I could be wrong on that, but hectares, I don't believe, but okay. Anyway, there's a lot of land that they put up and basically identified throughout the province that they felt were suitable areas for wind energy. For those who don't know, the experts in the world and in the field, they say and believe fully that Newfoundland, the island, is the best place in the world to execute this new technology when it comes to hydrogen and ammonia production, and having plenty of markets overseas looking to take whatever product they can get. And of course we may have some opportunities ourselves, I would say, and suggest that government would be looking at ways that we could benefit from that excess power as well. Of course, between where we are now and that actually coming to fruition is a long ways. And there's a process to follow. And everybody will have an opportunity to question the project, to get additional information. If anybody wants any information that we have already, we'd be more than happy to help you out or answer any questions in terms of how we understand it. But as Councillor Knoll said, it is a project that is truly, transitional for the province if it were to come to fruition. They're talking about some couple thousand jobs, and the construction stage being billions of dollars spent, and and there's a lot to that. And of course, it does have to be done right. And as we know, the province and the federal government, and particularly the province, has a department in place that will take a close look at environmental assessments, and we'll turn everything over and back again and make sure that the projects has no major long-term effects on the province for sure. And certainly any impacts at all are not good. But when you look at opportunities perhaps to mitigate some issues that may arise, and you weigh that against the potential that exists in the economic boost, it's just unbelievable to really think about how big the projects could be. And we're looking at some 31 submissions, I think, across the province. So obviously we won't see 31 projects, but it's likely we will see some. And if all the projects are in the same, on the same scale, I guess, as the wind energy project being proposed for Central, you're talking about a lot of power and a lot of manpower required to, work. And I think the ideal goal for the company here is to ramp their project up to some 3,200 megawatts of power after the final phase will be completed. Now, to put that in perspective for people, Muskrat Falls, that bad word we know, and obviously it's much different than that in that it's not a hydroelectric project for one thing, but Muskrat Falls has capacity for 825 megawatts. So this project is proposing, almost 4 times the amount of power that Muskrat Falls has right here in central Newfoundland. So it is a huge project. As Councillor Knoll said, and all council, I believe, were at that information session. We've had an opportunity to meet with the company and other companies as well that are interested in that field. And it's important for people to keep an open mind, because you hear a lot of quick comments, and really the technology has changed and things can be done correctly, and it's being done in other areas of the world. And we need to get out ahead of this as a province, and I think Central Newfoundland needs to get out ahead of it as a region so that we can benefit. Okay, any other comments on the community services minutes? Hearing none, we got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, Public Works and Development. You may have noticed that Councillor Cody isn't with us tonight. She sends her regrets. So Councillor Hiscock has agreed to read the minutes for Public Works meeting that we had. Councillor Hiscock.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Works and Development met Wednesday, February 22nd at 5 p.m. Present were Chairperson Councillor Amy Cody, members Deputy Mayor Mike Brown, Councillor Bob Hiscock, Councillor Dave Noel, Councillor Holly Dwyer, Councillor Andrew Little, and the staff, Darren Finn, Chief Administrative Officer, Nelson Chapman, Director of Public Works and Development, and Robin Hannaford, Communications Officer. Community Gardens. The committee discussed a request from Community Gardens to assist with some work at the location on Lincoln Road adjacent to the Kearney Club. The committee recommends staff work with the group to facilitate the request. Amber Estates. The committee welcomed Scott Barnes to the meeting at 5:55 p.m. Mr. Barnes delivered a presentation to the committee regarding Amber Estates. This is a development that was started several years ago to construct some senior housing. Mr. Barnes is now requesting the town to complete a section of paving on the town way for the initial 100 meters. Mr. Barnes was excused from the meeting at 6:30 p.m. The committee recommends staff investigate his request further and provide more information at the next committee meeting. Corduroy Developers Limited. The committee reviewed correspondence from Corduroy Developers Limited on the following. Section 1. Corduroy Developers Limited will require access to land that is currently granted to the town to move forward with the next phase of development. Land in this area was granted to the former town of Windsor for a cemetery. It is to be used for other purposes. The town must purchase or release it back to Crown Lands. The committee recommends the areas required for the Corduroy Developers Limited be returned to Crown Lands. Section 2, the developers would like the town to revise the issue of the private land released from Crown Lands on McCarthy Street. The court case has been idle for several years and they would like an update on the status. The committee recommends staff follow up with legal counsel for more information. Quarter-Ride Developers Limited has requested the town to construct a roadway from the Excite Building to the future Barnett Street to facilitate a gravity sewer line construction and eliminate the need for a lift station. In addition, this would make additional land available for development. The committee recommends this to be denied. The developers can design and construct the roadway and sewer line as per the town's standards as part of their development, but the town will not participate in the development. 226 Grenfell Heights land. The committee reviewed an offer from the owner of 226 Grenfell Heights to sell property to the town. This land has potential for a future residential development that would tie into other town land in the area and connect to Malloy Street once completed. There is approximately 2 hectares of land available. The committee recommends staff reach out to the property owners to discuss a price and bring back to the committee for discussion. Downtown land for sale. The committee reviewed an appraisal for the commercial land that is for sale in the downtown area. The 2 properties are 6 Mill Road and 2 to 4 High Street. The town uses most of this land now as additional parking for the downtown area. The committee recommends staff negotiate with the owner and bring back to the committee for future discussion. Crown Land referral, Grenfell Heights. The committee reviewed a referral from Crown Lands for 1.81 hectares behind 294 Grenfell Heights. The applicant has a proposal for a new residential development of 34 lots. The proposal is a sketch only with no detailed engineering drawings. The committee recommends that this is not to be approved at this time. The applicant would need to present a more detailed concept and enter a subdivision agreement with the town before approval is granted. Discretionary use, 20 Cromer Avenue. The committee reviewed a request from a business at 20 Cromer Avenue to have mini storage units within the building. This type of use is identified as discretionary use in the commercial general zone of the town of Grand Falls, Windsor Development Regulations 2022-2032. A notice was mailed to adjacent property owners and posted on the town's social media sites. There were no objections or concerns received. The committee recommends this be approved pending approval from Service NL and other government agencies as required. Discretionary use, 3 Queensway. The committee reviewed a request from a business at 3 Queensway to use the upper level of a new proposed development as a short-term rental. This type of use is identified as a discretionary use in the commercial general zone of the town of Grand Falls, Windsor Development Regulations 2022-2032. A notice was mailed to adjacent property owners and posted on the town's social media sites. There were no objections or concerns received. The committee recommends this be approved pending approval from Service NL and other government agencies as required. Development regulations and municipal plan. The committee reviewed the update development regulation amendment number 1, 2022. There were no submissions received for the scheduled public hearing. Therefore, the hearing was canceled. The amendment is now ready to be approved and registered. The committee recommends this to be approved and a resolution be prepared for the next public council meeting. The meeting adjourned at 7:30 p.m. I move the recommendation and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Hiscock, second by Councillor Knoll. Any discussion on the Public Works minutes? No discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Just before you go,
Yeah,
I just want to point out to Mayor and Council, there was a correction that needs to be made to the minutes in that the on 3 Queensway, I believe it is that what we're referring to? There was one objection received, and that request, and so the minute don't reflect that objection.
correct? Yep, so there's one received, and I wondered the same thing, I just didn't think it was a formal submission, but it was formally submitted as per the procedures. Okay, so with that being said, I'll go back and I had already asked for a vote, but I'll do it once again. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Now, we do have some resolutions to keep you busy, Councillor Hiscock, in Councillor Cody's absence.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution revised Schedule A, Multi-Year Capital Works Program, GF-W 2023-358. Whereas the town of Grand Falls, Windsor qualifies for funding under the provincial multi-year capital works program, whereas all projects and funding allocation under these agreements must be approved through the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And whereas the town of Grand Falls, Windsor has available funding remaining in the multi-year capital works program and has to reprofile funding. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Grand Falls, Windsor approves the funding allocation and the revised Schedule A. And I propose the acceptance of this resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's been proposed by Councillor Hiscock, second by Councillor Little. Any discussion on the first resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Resolution passed. Number 2, Councillor Hiscock, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution GF-W 2023-359, Urban and Renewal Planning Act 2000, resolution to approve Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Municipal Plan Amendment Number 1 to 2022. Under the authority of Section 16, Section 17, and Section 18 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, the Town Council of Grand Falls, Windsor, A, adopted the Amendment Number 1, 2022 to the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Municipal Plan on the 24th day of January 2023. B, gave notice of the adoption of the Amendment Number 1, 2022 to the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Municipal Plan by posting the notice at the Windsor Stadium and at the Joe Byrne Memorial Stadium. The notice was published in the Central Wire on February 1st and February 8th, 2023. As well, the notice was posted on the town webpage, Facebook page, and on Twitter. Proof of notification is attached to this document. C, set the 15th day of February 2023 for the submission of submissions for the commissioner responsible for the public hearing to consider objections and submissions. Now, under the authority of Section 23 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, the Town Council of Grand Falls, Windsor approves the Amendment Number 1, 2022 to the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Municipal Plan as adopted, and I propose, Mayor, the acceptance of this resolution.
Okay, it's been proposed by Councillor Hiscock, seconded by Deputy Mayor Brown. Any discussion on the second resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Resolution passed. Number 3, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. GFW 2023-360, Urban and Renewal Planning Act 2000, resolution to approve Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Development Regulations Amendment Number 1, 2022. A, adopted the Amendment Number 1, 2022 to the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Development Regulations on the 24th day of January 2023. Gave notice of the adoption of the Amendment Number 1, 2022 to the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Development Regulations by posting a notice at the Windsor Stadium and at the Joe Byrne Memorial Stadium. The notice was published in the Central Wire on February the 1st and 8th, 2023, as well. The proof of notification is attached to this document. Set the 15th day of February 2023 for the submission of objections, submission for the commissioner responsible for the public hearings to consider objections and submissions. Now, under the authority of Section 23 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, the Town Council of Grand Falls, Windsor approves the Amendment Number 1, 2022 to the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Development Regulations as adopted. And Mr. Mayor, I propose the adoption of this resolution.
Okay, it's proposed by Councillor Hiscock, seconded by Councillor Knoll. Any discussion on the third resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Resolution passed. Flying right along. You're doing a fine job, sir. Number 4.
Resolution GF-W 2023-361. Resolution revised Schedule A, Multi-Year Capital Works Program. Whereas the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor qualifies for funding under the Municipal Multi-Year Capital Works Program. or provincial, multi-year capital works program. Whereas all projects and funding allocation under these agreement must be approved through the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And whereas the town of Grand Falls-Windsor has available funding remaining in the multi-year capital works program and has to reprofile funding, therefore be it resolved that the Schedule A be revised and funding be reallocated as per attached Schedule A. And Mr. Mayor, I propose the acceptance of this resolution.
Okay, it's been proposed by Councillor Hiscock, seconded by Councillor Dwyer. Any discussion on the last resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Resolution passed. Okay, Committee of the Whole meeting. Deputy Mayor Brown, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Committee of the Whole met 5 p.m. Tuesday, February 28th, 2023. Those in attendance were myself as Chair, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councillor Amy Cody, Councillor Dave Knoll, Councillor Holly Dwyer, Councillor Bob Hiscock, and Councillor Andrew Little. Staff in attendance: Darren Finn, our Chief Administrative Officer; Steve Goss, our Director of Corporate Services; Todd Mercer, our Director of Community Services; Nelson Chapman, Director of Public Works and Development; Russ Tebow, Municipal Enforcement Chief; and Robin Hannaford, our Communications Officer. First order of business was the MEO Activity Report. The committee welcomed Municipal Police Chief Russ Tebow to the meeting and reviewed the Municipal Police Activity Report for 2022. Police activity is tracked statistically based on regulation type, and this is rolled into monthly and year-to-date reports. In 2022, there were a total of 1,806 calls for service, an increase from 683 calls for service in 2021, which was a COVID year, notably. The department was reduced by one officer for approximately half the year in 2022, but still issued 1,341 violation notices. The committee was pleased with the activity in 2022, but encouraged staff to continue to find improvements and to fill the vacant position as soon as possible. As well, the committee recommended staff investigate the following and report back to the committee. 1. Wildlife officer responsibilities and mandate for enforcing ATV regulations within town limits. And 2. Scheduling options for overnight MEO patrols. Chief Tebow left the meeting at 5:30 p.m. YMCA. The committee welcomed representatives from the YMCA at 5:30 p.m. to discuss their financials and operations. The organization is reporting 1,338 members as of January 2023, with a net projected revenue of $2,537,998 and a net projected loss of $172,289 that is related to pool operations. The YMCA is seeking a grant of $60,000 as a contribution to help offset this loss. The committee recommends that staff review the information discussed and bring the request back to a future committee meeting for consideration and a decision for the YMCA. The committee also recommends that staff undertake some efforts to estimate capital needs at the YMCA and bring back a plan to council for consideration in future budgeting. YMCA representatives left the meeting at 6:30 p.m. Residential development proposal in an area of Queensway Commercial General Zone. The committee welcomed Mr. Burt to the meeting at 6:35 p.m. Mr. Burt discussed his interest in constructing quadplexes in an area zoned Commercial General on Queensway. Rezoning that area would be required. The committee recommends that the process for rezoning can start if a suitable development proposal can be finalized and presented to council. Such a proposal must include a private road that will be a sole connection onto Queensway. A final decision related to rezoning would be made by council at the end of the necessary legislative rezoning process. Mr. Burt left the meeting at 6:50 p.m. Capital Works Plan. The committee discussed the multi-year capital funding Schedule A and staff's recommendations to reallocate $125,000 from the Public Works Department to the Bank Road water line and storm sewer replacement on Bank Road. The committee recommends this reallocation and recommends it be approved. The meeting adjourned at 7:10 p.m., and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's moved by Deputy Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Little. Any discussion, comment on the Public Works, or sorry, the Committee of the Whole minutes? Councillor Knoll.
Just like to take a second just to address the MEO report that we had and to let some of the residents know that, 'cause we get a lot of calls regarding the ATV traffic through town and, what's the town doing, that sort of stuff. And just let the town, let everybody know, I guess, that, this is not just something that we as a town council can dictate what goes on within the streets, even though we try to be, like other communities, ATV friendly. It's still up to the enforcement officials who decide to patrol that particular day. And, we had lots of calls last year when a number of inland enforcement officials decided to show up downtown, and they intercepted a lot of riders from the Goodyear Avenue and Second Avenue, those areas downtown, on the way behind the mill. Just let residents know that we were and we will try to work with these agencies to come to some amicable agreement, I guess is the best way to describe the term, until we can come to such time that we have around town connectivity, which we all strive to have. But, we just hope that this is a once-of kind of event, and the inland enforcement officials don't take it upon themselves as to ruin what we're trying to move forward as a town council. So, thanks, Mayor.
Yep, thanks for that. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contramanded? Motion carried. Corporate services, we do have two sets of corporate services minutes, so Councillor Dwyer, I'll ask you to read the main set first, and then for the second set of minutes, we'll ask the Deputy Mayor to excuse us.
Following are the minutes for corporate services held 6 p.m. Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. Present were myself as chair, Councillor Amy Cody, Councillor Dave Knoll, Mayor Barry Manuel, Deputy Mayor Mike Brown, Councillor Bob Hiscock, and Councillor Andrew Little. Staff in attendance were Darren Finn, our Chief Administrative Officer, Robin Hannaford, Communications Officer, and Steve Goss, Director of Corporate Services, Town Clerk. Also attending the meeting was guest Bruce Keats, resident. Guest resident at 103 Circular Road. Bruce Keats, a resident from Circular Road, joined the meeting to discuss water problems in his area of town. He was wondering about the timeline on the capital job and wanted to find a solution to fix the issues permanently. The committee recommends that staff continue to look into ways to fix the water issues in the Circular Road area and keep Mr. Keats up to date if there are any developments. Mayor Barry Manuel had a prior commitment and had to leave the meeting at 6:45 p.m. Bruce Keats was excused from the meeting at 7 p.m. Labor report. The committee reviewed the labor costs as of week 7. Total labor was $458,475. This was $7,395, or 1.6% under budget. The committee is pleased with the results of the labor report and recommends that staff continue to monitor labor costs moving forward. Disbursement report. The committee reviewed the disbursement report in the amount of $585,268.01 and recommends this be presented at the next council meeting. Youth Advisory Committee. The Director of Corporate Services, Town Clerk, provided the final draft of the terms of reference for the Youth Advisory Committee. The committee recommends council review these terms of reference and provide feedback to staff and bring back to the next Corporate Services meeting. Provincial Drama Festival request. The committee reviewed a request for funding toward the Provincial Drama Festival from Northcliffe Drama Club. Council originally budgeted $10,000 for this event back in 2020. However, it was postponed until 2023 due to COVID. The committee recommends approval of $10,000 once again for 2023. Building Age-Friendly Community Grant. The committee discussed an application for the Building Age-Friendly Community Grant that will provide heating and cooling for the users at the 50-plus club. The grant provides 90% funding for the project. The committee recommends approval of this project and recommends that staff complete the application. The meeting adjourned at 7:30 p.m. and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Brown. Any discussion on the first set of corporate services? Councillor Hiscock.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, with regards to the water problems Circular Road downtown. Just want to let the residents know that the contract is awarded, and the shovels be hitting the ground soon as weather permits and the ground dries up, whatever the case may be. But you know, it's been a long road, Mr. Mayor, and of course, as you and all the councilors know, it's a long road, but hopefully it will be rectified this summer. Like I said, the shovels be hitting the ground come the spring, and hopefully this will take care of that problem. And no one, Mr. Mayor, as you know, is oblivious to this, and we're not, you know, prone, where we are not able to do anything right now, but it will be done. And another thing too is some of us suffer the same thing as yourself and me and everyone else. And last week my wife washed what used to be white clothes and is now brown. So it happens to all of us, but hopefully, Mr. Mayor, this will be rectified come this year. Thank you.
Yep, no, well said, and it's, you know, this circular road project is something that we've been trying to have pushed forward for years now, and unfortunately, after a couple of attempts, at least 2, maybe 3 attempts at our application to get funding, because it's a significant project, was turned down by government. At the time, we did finally get approval. So, you know, water issues are going to occur, I would say, forever in the community. You know, you've got varying degrees of infrastructure age, you've got different things that happen with regards to water breaks and et cetera. But we do know, particularly in that area, that there's been, you know, some very bad issues with water for quite some time. And I got to commend, you know, staff, management and staff, that they just did everything they could. Each time someone would call, but unfortunately, you know, some of these issues are as simple as until it gets fixed and you get the proper infrastructure in the ground and all the connections made, then you're going to not have the issue resolved completely. So we look forward to that work this summer and look for much improved water and other infrastructure in the Circular Road area for sure. Any other comments on the first set of corporate services minutes? Councillor Dwyer.
Just with respect to the Youth Advisory Committee, Sarah McIntosh, Steve Gass and I met last week, and we're hoping to finalize that, the terms of reference, bring it back to council next meeting, and hopefully get that advisory committee up and running. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's something else we've been talking about for quite some time, of course, and really important and a good opportunity to have some of the youth in our town get engaged in municipal politics from a distance, but a little closer than what they would normally. So I look forward to finalizing that and getting some people involved. Any other comments on the first set of corporate services minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, Deputy Mayor Brown, I'll ask you to excuse us for this set of minutes. And Councillor Dwyer, I'd ask you to go ahead when ready.
Following are the minutes for corporate services held 5:15 p.m. Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. Present were myself as chair, Councillor Dave Knoll, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councillor Bob Hiscock, Councillor Andrew Little. Staff in attendance were Darren Finn, our Chief Administrative Officer, Robin Hannaford, Communications Officer, and Steve Goss, Director of Corporate Services, Town Clerk. Deputy Mayor Mike Brown, who is also the Executive Director of the Grand Falls Golf Course, was not included in this part of the meeting due to a perceived conflict of interest. Golf Course Request. The Director of Corporate Services, Town Clerk, and Chief Administrative Officer updated the committee about a meeting they had with the Grand Falls Golf Club executive regarding potential upgrades to the course. The executive provided details about their plan, including borrowing costs, and have asked council to consider supporting the project in some way. This is a significant investment for the Grand Falls Golf Club, and the committee appreciates that the club is looking to make improvements to the golf experience in Grand Falls-Windsor. The committee recognizes that any support from the town will also be significant, and therefore the committee has asked that staff perform some additional analysis on the feasibility of the project and to discuss at a future committee meeting. Once the committee has more information, they will invite the Grand Falls Golf Club executive to a committee meeting to discuss with them. The meeting adjourned at 6 p.m. I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Knoll. Any discussion on the second set of corporate services minutes? Hearing none, just a quick comment, I guess, on just to provide some more detail, I guess. We do know that the golf club executive have approached the membership, I think, and have been talking about different options of work that they may want to undertake, ranging from adding additional new holes to improving or repairing existing holes and fairways and that sort of thing. And I think they had a number of options that they presented to the golf membership, and they've been working through that. And as it states, have come to council with looking for some support. There hasn't been no detailed request or anything at this point, certainly. And as is stated, we have asked staff to go back and to take a look at, you know, the project more closely, what project it is that they will end up getting into, and what the details are of the proposed project, and with regards to costs and timeframes, and then we would revisit at that time. So I think it's important to just put a little bit more detail there. Any other comment on the second set of corporate services minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Counter-minded? Motion carried. We'll retrieve the deputy mayor. Okay, so the next order of business is any notice of motion. Are there any notice of motion? No notice of motion. We'll move into other business. And up first tonight is Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start off tonight by acknowledging a young hockey player from Grand Falls-Windsor, Hilary Taylor, who participated in the Canada Winter Games in Prince Edward Island last week. Anybody who's familiar with the Grand Falls-Windsor Minor Hockey Association will be familiar with Hilary. She came up through the system and did very well for herself. She made the Canada Winter Games. In fact, the only athlete from Grand Falls-Windsor to participate in the Canada Winter Games, as far as I know. And so congratulations, Hilary. We're all the people of Grand Falls-Windsor, we're certainly proud of you. Hilary is playing hockey now at Ridley College and plays in an elite hockey league and is continuing her studies there as well. So good luck with that as well, Hilary. The Heritage Society got two big projects coming up this spring, summer, hoping to get completed. One is the transfer of the Library's Life Museum from Beathic Park to the Heritage property on Scott Avenue. A significant project which requires a lot of work. And secondly, they're going to build a replica of the old railway station that was on the Main Street in the former town of Windsor as well. So two big projects. They're in the process of applying for some funding with the help of our Director of Community Services. And let's hope that those two projects come to fruition this year. There will be two major attractions for that facility, the Heritage Society facility on Scott Avenue, and certainly will attract a lot of people down there, and hopefully a lot of people from out of town. And anything we do, anything the Heritage Society does is in conjunction with it, trying to attract people to come to Grand Falls-Windsor, make the stop, stay overnight, and spend some money here. And finally, Mr. Mayor, just a little shout out to a gentleman that's here this evening, Rick Terry. Rick took it upon himself all winter long to ensure that the rink at Rushy Pond was cleaned, watered, swept, and suitable for skating 7 days a week out there. So quite a bit of work went into that. I'd like to congratulate Rick Terry for doing that for the people of Grand Falls-Windsor. And as far as I know, it's well attended on a daily basis, a few hockey games, and people just out skating. So good work, Rick. Congratulations. Keep it going. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, no, good to point that out. And it did get a lot of action, I understand. I know a lot of kids have been making their way back and forth there as soon as the conditions were conducive. Councillor Knoll.
I just have one that I might want to add on to what Deputy Mayor had mentioned earlier about Midwinter River. And we've been shut down for a couple of years because of COVID. And this year we ran it again. And I know that for many people involved, there's a lot of work. And I really want to congratulate our Director, Todd Mercer, in his present position, and even going back 13 years ago, I guess now, in the Assistant Director's position, and having the foresight and the vision, dream of creating an event that would attract people from all over the island. And prior to COVID, we actually had people from Canada, I should say Upper Canada, drive to Newfoundland to participate in this event. I mean, you know, it had taken off and it had created its own life. Became its own great entity. And we had to reinvent it this year, and you know, it wasn't of the same numbers that it was prior to COVID, but I know that you know, with the continued great work behind the scenes that it can be, and speaking to some of the people who came from out of town, I mean, they simply loved it. I mean, yeah, we had to work with the trails, and our sister group from Lewisport did a remarkable job. Thank you to the Lewisport Club for coming in and sneaking some snow from the Bishop's Hall Trestle eastward to make the rail bed as best as you could given the conditions that we had. But you know, it was just a fabulous weekend, great food and great camaraderie amongst everybody. And again, search and rescue did a fabulous job as usual, making sure everybody took off and arrived home safe. And overall, it was just a fabulous weekend. I just want to say accolades and thanks again to the Community Service Department here. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hiscock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of items, if I may, with regards to the events, like I said, just the midwinter bever and that. There's a bunch of more stuff coming up, and I asked the residents to please look at our Facebook page. There's all kinds of events coming up now and throughout the rest of the winter. Also, the Multi-Material Stewardship Board, Mr. Mayor, new incentive, the household recycling. Now, Grand Falls-Windsor as such are doing really good, but about 50% of recyclable materials end up in our waste. And if we can just spend more time making sure that the recyclables go into blue bags where they're supposed to be, and reduce it down, we're going to take something in the vicinity of 157,000 tons of greenhouse gases out of the environment of Newfoundland by just doing this one little thing. And also, Mr. Mayor, if I may, people may have noticed in the last few weeks that we're removing snow in cul-de-sacs and narrow streets. So we just asked the residents if they would be very cautious around the moving heavy equipment. We've got dump trucks, front-end loaders, semi-dump trucks in there. So just be very cautious about entering these places. Our workers are trying to do the best they can to keep the snow out of the areas and make it safe. Also, Mr. Mayor, if I may, is on a sad note, one of the music legends of not only Grand Falls-Windsor, Central Newfoundland, Lorne Way, passed away yesterday. Lorne's just a great guy. I've known him for many years, and of course anybody would know Lorne certainly. And our condolences go out to Lorne's family and friends and that, because we lost a great musician and a great person. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, that we did, a legend for sure, and one heck of a drummer as well. Councillor Little.
Thank you. We, or I should say the Grand Falls-Windsor Minor Hockey Association hosted 2 invitational tournaments this past weekend for female hockey, under 11 and under 18. Our host team, the Grand Falls-Windsor Cataracts, won gold medals in both those tournaments, which is pretty great.
Awesome.
Good to see. It's great to see the female, you saw the female teams come into our stadiums. During Easter week, we, or the Grand Falls-Windsor Minor Hockey Association and Town Grand Falls-Windsor, because our director does a lot of work with these two, are hosting 2 provincial tournaments. So in the first week, I can't remember which week, but for the first 3 days of Easter week, there will be one tournament going on, and the second 3 days, there's another tournament going on. So this year, all Easter week, we do have minor hockey happening at our stadiums, which is good because last year we never had any, which was a little disappointing, but it's great to see this year we do have it back. Hopefully we have it every year. It's great to see. Always, when these people come into our town is always a good thing, regardless of what they're coming for, right? And finally this weekend, stay with the hockey. AAA midgets, or AAA under 18 major midget are having their playoffs at the Joburn this weekend. Is it Saturday and Sunday time? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They had a bit of a rough weekend last weekend, but they assured me that they're going to read this weekend, and they're going to give the Pinnacle Growlers, the first place team in the league, a run for their money. So, as everyone knows, fan support is huge, especially when you're a bit of an underdog. So, if people can get out and support them, hopefully we can get them back to their winning ways that they experienced in the first round of the playoffs. There we go. Thanks.
Yep, no, thank you, Councillor Little. And just to set that up a little bit more, They did win their semifinal series, as you said, played great hockey there and were the underdogs in that series, and ended up sweeping the team 4 straight, and now are playing the first place team who had very few losses during the regular season. And despite the scores last week, and I believe it was 4-0 and 4-1 or something like that, the play, I watched the second game online, a fair bit of it, and it was a lot closer than what you would think. And it's great hockey. You know, you're talking about young men who are 17, 18 years old and not afraid to mix it up and, you know, throw their weight around, and very skilled as well. So to want to see some good hockey, get out this weekend. I can't recall now what tickets cost are, but they're not expensive. And it'll be some great hockey. And as Councillor Little said, every bit of help to get behind the home team and to get back in that series against the team from St. John's would be greatly appreciated by all, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I know I've been contacted this week from a number of residents up around the Lind Avenue, St. Catherine Street area, who presumably have received notification that the rezoning, they're looking to see if they have any input. Nelson, do you know if the residents, I know that adjacent residents would receive it, but did residents on Lind Avenue and St. Catherine Street receive the notification?
Yes, the first residents hopped to the turn on Lind Avenue, and St. Catherine Street received notices.
Okay, good.
The notice will also be in the Central Water too this week.
In Central Water, okay. So for those who don't know, Millcrest was purchased, and they're looking to change the school from public use to residential. And beautiful plans they have for an apartment complex there, condominiums, landscaped, just absolutely beautiful. But I think the issue, the concern that residents have is with the Millcrest gymnasium, which would be changed from public use to commercial reduced, commercial general reduced. And maybe the way it was worded as a distribution center may be causing some of the concern. The owner is looking at, or has a bid placed on a contract from Central Health that would see the warehouse or the gym be used as a warehouse facility for medical supplies. And so it's a provincial initiative, and we're hoping that someone from Grand Falls-Windsor gets it, because it would be good for the region. There are some jobs going to be, I think they said 10 jobs maybe implicated there. So I guess if the pandemic taught us a lot, but one of the things that it taught us was that it demonstrated that it's difficult sometimes to get supplies when it's needed, especially on a provincial basis. So I guess where we're centrally located, it would be a good opportunity for them to have a warehouse with significant supplies. We don't anticipate that it would be busy. Like, you know, it's a gymnasium. It's not like TRA or something like that. So maybe classifying it as a distribution center may give people the idea that it's going to be busier than it is. But you know, we're anticipating like vans as opposed to like transport trucks, and not very busy. Certainly not as busy as it would have been when it was the school. I live in the area, so I'm quite familiar with that. Anyway, that's all I had about that. The other thing I wanted to just say how sorry we all are about the news of Gordon Pinsent passing away this past week. It was nice to have had the opportunity during the Civic Awards a few years back to be communicating with him often. Sarah McIntosh and I arranged for him to come and had a video, and it was he was a real gentleman. There was not anything that he wouldn't do, and we had a few takes in that video, but it was never too much to ask, and he was a great person, surely be missed. And we're planning to do something to commemorate him, and I'm sure we'll have some discussion about that in the next meetings for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add on to the Millcrest piece, and I've said this before because it comes up every time we have some sort of rezoning. There's a process to follow, a legislative process when it comes to rezoning. So when someone puts forward a rezoning application, you know, if council feels that it's absolutely something that we're not going to allow, well, we'll tell them to save their stamps and their fees and that, and not do it. But bearing that, we would go forward knowing that there'll be a lot more to discuss in the future. And then there's prescribed steps that have to be followed as per the legislation when it comes to the rezoning. And the first step, of course, is to send out the notices to the area, the immediate area, and it'll be in the central wire, and it's on also on our social media. In addition, a part of the legislative process is to have a public meeting to allow people to come out, to have their say, or to answer questions, or have questions answered, rather, and to get further information. And it's not until all that is done before council actually sits down and considers an approval or a denial of such a request. So we're not at that point now. And therefore, I don't see us getting into any kind of debate on the issue, and I don't believe we will, because I think that the issues that may arise are manageable, and it's important that we continue to communicate with the residents in that area. And we've asked staff, of course, to get further details as well, so that we fully understand what exactly is going to be occurring there before we make any final decision. So I just thought it was important to point that out. You know, we're not at a point where council has approved anything other than to say, you know, this looks reasonable, and we would go forward with the process. And as I said, we're following that now. We never want to do anything that's going to interrupt life for residential areas and make things, you know, annoyances or any kind of loud, disturbing, continuous noises, and I don't believe that'll be the case, as was said, but certainly there's a lot more discussion to be had on that. But I'll just point out what Councillor Dwyer had referred to, is that, you know, this is a provincial initiative that this owner of the building has bid on for the Provincial Health Authority, which would be something that we would want to have in Grand Falls-Windsor. And, you know, not that that trumps any residents' rights and everything, and that's not what I'm suggesting. I just believe that we can certainly work together to make sure that this goes forward and that everybody's concerns are satisfied before we do. And the last thing to say is, you know, that was an old, beat-down school, and we know we had enough of them around here in the past, and just about every one of them burned at some point, or, you know, caused a lot of issues. So having that building purchased by someone who is going to redo it into condominiums is a good thing. And obviously, the usage of the gymnasium is something that we'll continue to track. But just want to make sure that people in the area particularly, and anywhere, because any concerns are relevant, they can talk to us, and we want to continue to hear from them, and we want to work with them to make sure that their concerns are met as this rezoning process proceeds. Okay. Deputy Mayor Brown, you already went, didn't you? No, back to me. Okay. No.
I was reading an article the weekend in the New York Times, and it had been related to Gordon Pinson. And Mary Welch had some comments on Gordon Pinson. And she said, if there was royalty in Newfoundland, Gordon Pinson would be king. And so true. So I just wanted to add that, Mr. Mayor.
No, true words. And, you know, for me as well, Councillor Dwyer had mentioned the Civic Awards and having the pleasure to work with him. I remember discussing our Salmon Festival that year, and I basically called him up on a whim, you know. I knew Blaze, and Blaze had contact information, Blaze Pinson, his nephew, that is. And so I got his phone number and called him up and told him who I was and had a grand chat with him. And I said, I want to ask some favors from you. And he said, oh, okay, well, go ahead. And I said, well, first of all, we'd like for you to virtually present one of our civic awards. And he said, oh, no problem. And I said, secondly, we'd love for you to do a promotional video where we could use your voice to have a promotional video of Grand Falls-Windsor done. And he said, I would love to. And I said, thirdly, we would like to have you as our guest for our Salmon Festival this year. And this was probably around March, you know, and Salmon Festival is still several months away. And I remember him saying, well, I don't make plans too far out these days. He said, but he said, I'll think about it and get back to you. And of course, anybody who knew of Gordon or knew him would know that he spent many summers, parts of, visiting his hometown to visit his brother Harry. And spent a lot of time with Harry, and that was sort of a normal routine. And at the time, Harry was still alive. He's passed since, sadly. But Gordon did decide to come to our Salmon Festival that year, as we know. And not only did we get to use his voice for the promotional video, he basically was the promotional video. And if you haven't seen it, like, you should take a look, because it's very powerful, very well done, and you know, to see him reflect on his hometown, and everybody says the same thing when it comes to him, amongst other things, is like how modest he is, you know, very modest and unassuming and just a real gentleman. He's very nice to everybody he meets, and he certainly was true to form that Salmon Festival weekend. And to hear the news of his passing was difficult. Because, as you said, you know, royalty, or Mary Walsh had said, royalty, there's no truer words. I mean, the accomplishments of that man who was from 4th Avenue in Grand Falls at the time are amazing. I mean, he, as a writer, a director, a musician, a poet, an artist, you know, he did it all, and did it with such class. And to have him as our native son is something that everybody I know in this community has been truly proud of. And it was a sad day, and I know that we've had an opportunity to discuss a little bit about what we'd like to do in the future. But as Councillor Dwyer said, there will be a lot more discussion on ways that we can recognize, you know, our greatest resident, I would say, of all time. And he lived a good life, and it should be celebrated. So just wanted to add on to that. Education Week is coming up next week. For those of you who may not know, I'm sure a couple of the councillors here would know for sure, school teachers amongst us. So, you know, there's lots of activities on the go with that. And of course, as Councillor Earl said, the AAA midget hockey is on the weekend. And other than that, really, I did have a couple other things, but I think I'd like to leave it at that, given we had recognizing Gordon Vincent to end things this evening. So I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Little. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. We'll see you next time.
I'm Gordon Vincent, and welcome to the wonderful town of Grand Falls, Windsor.